Generation X Paranormal.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back.
Hey everybody.
So this episode is going to be a little bit on a different scale. I know usually it's ghosts, goblins, and crazy things, but this one's a little bit different and it's very intriguing. I'm sure, like myself, a lot of you have thought that the father, or the, I shouldn't say father, the creator of modern day cinema was always Thomas Edison, right?
Mm-hmm.
He invented the camera, the light bulb. I mean, this guy invented everything, right?
Or so we
Or
think.
so we think. So, like you, I would have never thought anything different. But, you know, as one does when they have a paranormal show, we look up all kinds of different things. At least Nicole does. She's amazing at it. And she came across a very interesting story. And I'm sure if you haven't heard about it, you might find this really intriguing. So, and what we'll be talking about is the disappearance of Louis Le Prince from France. And he may or may not change your mind on who the father of the modern day cinema really is. So, kind of moving on. So, Louis Le Prince, he was born on August 28th in 1841 in Metz, France. While growing up, he spent time in the studio of a family friend, the pioneer photographer Louis Daguerre. Now, if you don't know who Louis Daguerre is, so I'll give you a quick 101 on art history. He developed a thing called a tintype. So if you, and this will be important to this story later, but instead of using a camera with traditional film, he would set up a very, very highly polished piece of metal and project an image on it. And it would burn in. So that was what Daguerre was kind of known for. And that was a daguerreotype, if you ever had one of those pictures, which are worth a ton of money if you have one now. And of course, he did learn photography and chemistry before he was 10 years old. Eventually, Louis traveled to Paris, where he studied painting and did a postgraduate program for chemistry at Leipzig University in Germany. So this guy was pretty well traveled.
Mm-hmm.
He probably got a lot of influence in a lot of different places. So he moved to Leeds, England in 1866 after being invited to join John Whitley, who was a friend from college. And they were going to make valves and components for a company. So they were just pretty much laborers. They're just going to do, laborers' jobs, so to speak. And in 1869, he married John's sister, Elizabeth, who was a talented artist. So he's really kind of getting deep into the family at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they went to Paris on their honeymoon, where Le Prince repeatedly visited a magic show that demonstrated an illusion with moving, transparent figures with multiple reflections of mirrors focused at one point. So I think how that works is they project a whole bunch of things in one spot to make it look like it was moving. So at any rate, so Louis and Elizabeth Le Prince started the Leeds Technical School of Art and became well known for their work in fixing colored photographs on metal and pottery, which led them being commissioned for portraits of Queen Victoria and the Prime Minister, William Gladstone. So that kind of brings us full circle where he was learning how to do some of that metal work. So that was really interesting. And then in 1881, Le Prince went to the United States, where he became a manager for a small group of French artists who produced large panoramas, usually of famous battles, were exhibited in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. So now he's getting this really grandiose view of the world, right? He's looking at artists who are creating these ginormous portraits. Mm-hmm. So now he's starting to think a little bit. During his time, he began experimenting with production of moving photographs, designing a camera that used 16 lenses. So, and it was the first to be patented. So he actually patented this 16 lens camera. Now, this is pretty important. This is going to come full circle here later down the road. Although the camera was capable of capturing motion, it wasn't a complete success because each lens photographed the subject from a slightly different viewpoint, and so the image would have jumped about, and it had been able to project it, which was unknown. We didn't know if he could actually put that anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So he created this machine, and it would create all these different focal points, but they weren't lined up exactly perfect. So we don't know exactly what the quality. I mean, obviously it was an HD quality because, it was 1800s. So Anyway, he returned to Leeds in May of 1887 and built a single lens camera in 1888. Now, that date is going to be very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So 1888, he develops his camera. It was first used on October 14th to shoot the Roundhay Garden scene. If you've never seen this, and we'll definitely put on the video, but for those listening, it's a very short 20 frame series of pictures that move, obviously making motion picture. And it depicts, I think, 4 adults, and they're just kind of moving around and around. Now, it is not really argued. I think that's pretty consensus driven that is the very, very first motion picture ever
his
created.
Family.
Right.
His
and it was
son.
his family. His son, I think, the Whitley family, a couple from the Whitley family, and he also shot a video of his son playing the accordion. So that was, he's just trying different things, right? And then he later used it to film road traffic and pedestrian traffic at Leeds Bridge. So it kind of brings us full circle on some of the historical background. There's a lot more that we're going to get into, but yeah. So here's this guy. He's got this new invention. He's really excited. So he's filming some family and friends, and then he's just taking shots. It's similar to, like, I remember when my dad got the first, handheld camera that was a VHS he put on his shoulder.
Yep.
You remember those? I mean, my dad took camera or video of just about everything he
Mine
could.
too.
So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. What else do we want to go? We just start talking about the big show.
So in September of 1890, Le Prince was preparing to travel to the United States. He was going to publicly premiere this camera, and his wife and his son were already there, which they had sometimes lived in the U.S., sometimes come back and forth, basically. Right. But first, he was going to go to France and visit his brother because he had just become widowed. So he wanted to go see him before he went to the U.S.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. So on September 16th of 1890, he took a train to Dijon, France.
Ah, Dijon.
Where apparently his brother lived. So he visited his brother, and the last person to see him leaving the Dijon station was his brother.
Okay.
He disappears after this, basically. He had planned to return via Paris and Liverpool to New York. So he was supposed to go from Dijon to Paris to Liverpool, England, then to New York, I'm sure, by ship.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's how they traveled.
Even if they had aircraft at that point, I doubt he could afford it.
Yeah,
so
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Not by train. To New York. But he was never seen again by his family or his friends or anyone.
Okay.
The French police, as well as Scotland Yard and his family, searched, but they never found him or his luggage that he had with him, which I believe had some important documents in it concerning his camera.
Correct. I think it was what he was going to try to get the patent for and everything. It was basically, I think, a breakdown schematic of the entire machine. Hint.
So he was officially declared dead in 1897. So that's 7 years after this happens. They, didn't declare him dead till then. But in the meantime, there was other things going on. So there's several theories as to what happened to him. Yeah,
and you guys are going to have to forgive us because a lot of this information is, excuse me, it uses a lot of French surnames and I definitely don't want
words.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to offend anybody of French dialect. So please, I know I'm going to butcher it, and I'm so terribly sorry. But in 1966, Jacques Deslan, I'm going to say, proposed a theory in Histoire comparée du cinéma, which basically translates to the comparative history of cinema, which thought I'd give it a shot.
It sounded more like Spanish,
I
which
know.
you're used to speaking.
That's okay, though. Anyway, he claimed that Le Prince voluntarily disappeared for financial reasons and familiar conveniences. So, from my understanding, there was a little bit of a financial woe. He was in debt. He had definitely taken out loans or asked for markers on all these things that he was inventing. And and this is actually very common of inventors. They go into debt because they obviously don't have a lot of money, and they wait for that moment that they get discovered so that they can pay all their debts off, right?
Right.
So maybe not. I don't know. A photograph of a drowned man pulled from the Seine River in 1890, strongly resembling LaPrince, was discovered in 2003 during research of the Paris Police Archives. So this is something that was taken in 1890, but discovered in 2003.
Yeah.
That was what happened somewhere in the middle there, you know?
Well, they just didn't know who it was
Right.
at the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
But this led to the theory that he had failed to get his moving picture to work, and he had heavy debts, and thus he chose to take his own life. And it had been claimed that the body was too short to be LaPrince. So it's very macabre, but to me, I guess I don't bite on the theory of this photograph being him.
Well, no. And I don't think he would have taken his own life. He's getting ready to premiere this thing, which could have brought him fame and money and everything else. Why would that be the time that you would do it?
Well, yeah. And it
doesn't make any sense.
Right. And not to mention that it wasn't like he was the only one trying to come up with something.
Right.
There were a lot of people doing it. So if he thought he was going to be first to market, why that, you know?
Right. You're going to beat him to the punch.
Yeah, beat him to the punch. Sure.
So for the final theory, which is the one that I believe. So Elizabeth, his wife,
right.
She was convinced that she knew what happened to him. In May of 1891, 8 months after LaPrince was last seen alive, the New York Sun broke the story of Thomas Edison's latest wonder.
Oh, here we go.
The kintograph, which was a motion picture camera that recorded the footage viewable through the peephole of its counterpart, the kintoscope.
Imagine that.
What made Edison's announcement suspicious was that in late 1890, a few weeks, just weeks, after LaPrince's disappearance, Edison had filed a caveat, also known as a preliminary patent application.
Interesting.
For a motion picture camera similar to LaPrince's design. When Edison's earlier patents had been nothing like it.
Imagine
so
that.
he had filed patents before, but it was not in any way like LaPrince's. Okay?
Yeah.
Elizabeth believed Edison had stolen her husband's invention and had him killed to keep him from talking.
Yep.
Apparently, Edison was known for using his men, his hired men to do things. So this was all news to me.
And me.
When I started researching this, I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
Right. And this is what ticks me off, because it's like you grow up thinking one thing, you being taught one thing. Oh, this, person invented all this and they brought all this. And then you find out stuff like this
That
and
they
you're
were
like,
douche.
yeah. Well, yeah. And it usually does make sense, because very successful people get there usually one of two ways.
Yeah.
Either they actually work really hard and they make it, or they have screwed over people to get there.
And there's
and to know that it's Thomas, and I'm really pissed because we've got a lot of Edison bulbs in our home.
Yeah, we do.
It just like ticks me off.
We'll call them unique bulbs, or like vintage bulbs.
Yes.
Well, and that's what's interesting about that is this is not. I guess I'll tread lightly here because I am in the technical field for my living, and I can tell you that this particular type of thing happens a lot to this day. If you ever watch a show about Silicon Valley,
it
depicts some people.
That I expect, but this is like, you think about stuff in the past, you think everybody was like,
good show, sir.
Doing what they're supposed to be doing on the up and up.
Right.
Yeah. You don't think about it like them doing crap like this, but we know from history that it's not the truth.
And it was probably easier to do back then because, first of all, think about this, a turn of the century time frame. So, people are still very, very poor.
Yeah.
And if you're an inventor and you have some form of resources and you can hire some people to be like, hey, I need that guy gone. You know, they say, okay, well, my family hasn't eaten in a week, so I guess he's going to be gone. It's just wild. Like with you, I was really surprised to even think about that this was at least a relative possibility.
Right.
So Thomas Edison once gave an interview for the St. Louis Dispatch. Yay, St. Louis. I just thought I'd throw it in there. Where he was quoted as saying, I never had an idea in my life. I've got no imagination. Man, that sucks to say about yourself. I never dream. My so-called inventions already existed in the environment. I took them out. I've created nothing. Nobody does. However, most of Edison's inventions were usually him exploiting other people's designs and their work. Again, not a completely abstract thing. This does happen. And sometimes it happens on the up and up. Some people will say, look, I never got this to fruition. You take it. It happens a lot in science.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The incandescent light bulb was a hybrid of William Arcan's mineral oil lamp. I think I'm saying that right. And the globe-shaped bulb and carbon filament invented by Joseph Swan. Edison improved Alexander Graham Bell's invention of the telephone with a carbon microphone, which he only secured the patent to David Edward Hughes's invention. So
the things that he is known most for weren't even his.
He's
he
like,
just took them.
Yeah.
Patent them first, basically.
He's like,
them.
This Lego piece fits here and then here. Yeah. I mean,
it just,
if it wasn't
angry.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for all the other things that we've mentioned, I guess I wouldn't be that taken back because I know this does happen. I mean,
yeah,
even from inventor to inventor, some will say, look, I was only, I kind of think back. Well, this kind of shows my nerdism, but I think back to Iron Man, where his dad, Tony Stark's dad, says, I'm only capable of the resources I have in my time. I can't finish it. So you take the ball and run with it. That kind of thing happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that was his own son.
Right. Exactly.
That's
exactly.
different.
And again, like I said, if there wasn't all these other things, in the story, then I'd be like, oh, but here's where it's interesting. Caveats did not require a full patent application, but still could be used to establish precedents, as the holder would be notified of rival application being filed. So real quick breakdown. That's like saying, hey, I've got this idea. Okay. So I'm going to put a temporary patent or whatever the caveat's called. But anytime somebody comes to the patent office with something similar to it, you need to let me know. Is that the way you understand it too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
well, and going on, the caveat holder had 3 months to put together a full application, which could be backdated to match the original caveat. Well, that's really convenient. Edison had a long line of pre-patent applications and was waiting for someone to finish all the work so he could claim it as his own.
Yeah. So basically, instead of having to fill out the entire paper of everything like that you have to do to make whatever it is, he just filled out the beginning part of it to say, oh, I'm working on this thing and I want the patent, and he would submit it, and then he would just sit there and wait for the people to actually figure it out and finish it. But then if they went to file a patent, they couldn't because he had already done it, and then he would just steal it from them, basically. It's like because they were not allowed to file it because he already put the paperwork in. So it's just like if, I don't know, let's say if we had the idea for an iPhone, okay? Sure. And we went and we're like, okay, we know this person's working on this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Right. I'm just going to go file this paperwork. I don't have to really have that much information on it. I just have to like make up something, put it on the paperwork, and be like, I want the patent for this. What? And then we just wait for, Apple to develop it. And then when they go to file their patent, we're like, oh no, we had this first. Right. It backdated. And They just basically take it.
I got dibs on that.
And to get the paperwork,
yeah,
he either has somebody knocked off or he steals it or something like that.
Yeah,
That's the way I understand it.
I mean, I do too. I think I don't know if that's the spirit of it, but then again, back then, I don't know that, see, litigation and all these different things with inventions are really kind of a 20th century invention where everybody's
Yeah.
just suing the pants off of everybody for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know that a patent clerk or a patent office, a patent situation in those days, they weren't like, oh, we got to be careful because this guy's going to sue this guy. It was just like, hey, I got this idea. It's not fully fleshed out, but I need you to know that. So put it down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if anybody else comes up with it, let me go ahead and file the whole thing. We'll just backdate it. Sound good to you? Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just.
But that gave him a way to just figure out how to steal everything.
Well, yeah. And actually,
I mean, it said he had all these patents just sitting there. Like, he had filed a ton of them. There's no way he could have been working on all that at once. So he was just finding out information about all these different people that were working on things. And he's like, okay, file. Let's just wait for them to figure it out. And I can either steal the paperwork. I was just shocked.
Yeah, it is shocking. I mean, you get, I guess you get brought up in the history books that you're,
I know.
And they always say, well, listen, guys, we could talk for hours about this because there's so many accountings of it. But, history books are written by certain people, and I think it gets watered down and you don't get
by
the full
those who
picture.
win.
Right, by those who win. And then you have revisionist history. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so in 1898, LePrince's elder son, Adolphe, who had assisted his father in many of his experiments, was called as a witness for the American Mutoscope Company in their litigation with Edison, which was Equity 6928. By citing LePrince's achievements, Mutoscope hoped to annul Edison's subsequent claims to have invented the moving picture camera. LePrince's widow, Elizabeth, and Adolphe hoped that this would gain recognition for LePrince's achievement. But when the case went against Mutoscope, their hopes were dashed. Edison used his vast wealth and influence to win the litigation, and in turn, he then joined forces with Mutoscope and formed the Motion Pictures Patents Company, also known as the Edison Trust, which ensured that anyone making, distributing, or showing a movie in the United States from 1908 onward could only legally do so under license to the MPPC.
Wow.
Eastman Kodak. Okay, Kodak
name.
sounds familiar.
Just slightly.
Yeah, photo.
Yeah.
Agreed not to sell its new celluloid film to filmmakers outside the trust. Any producer or distributor not playing ball could expect a visit from a federal marshal or a thug with mob connections. So he controlled everything.
Well, yeah.
He made sure. Well, he wrapped it up in a tight little package.
He was so rich that who was going to go against him? I mean, they'd probably drown in, legal fees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Within 20 years of its invention, cinema in the United States became subject to a violently enforced monopoly that placed crippling restraints on trade and artistic freedom. If you wanted to make a film, you were Edison's employee.
Really? Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
That really worked out well for him.
Yeah, well. I was furious. I'm not gonna lie. When I found this out and I was really you talked to me right after that. I was like, I can't believe this happened. I was pretty furious. So it's not done. 2 years later, Adolphe LePrince, 2 years after the trial, was found dead on Fire Island near New York. He was shot to death in Pointa Woods, his body found near the family's cottage, his rifle at his side. There's no determination as to what happened. However, they say it was a hunting accident.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Whatever. Elizabeth was convinced it was another murder, and Edison was responsible because he knew that Adolphe knew too much.
Yeah.
And could maybe come back and try to take it from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's so. First of all, if you're okay, not to stumble on too much. Let's just play devil's advocate for just 1 second. Okay. Let's say you're Edison. And let's say, all right, even he said he doesn't invent anything. He just builds off of, people's ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go through this whole motion, and now you get this outside company suing you because they say that they're the ones who invented the camera and you're stealing from them. So you're just like, wow, I'm just a guy trying to make a living here, just trying to create things, right? Okay. Now you're kind of being pigeonholed as being really, he just executed this guy's entire family. I mean, may have killed him or may have killed his son or who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he is that depraved that he did all that and still managed to live the life that he lived, man, that really says a lot about the caliber of person that Thomas Edison was.
Mm-hmm.
And by all means, I know that Thomas Edison has a bunch of family, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the man. Okay. It sounds to me like he was a very
He was a thief.
well, yeah, he was probably kind of a corporate thief. He's one of those people that you wouldn't let in your boardroom because you don't know what he's doing when he's taking notes. I mean, who knows? This guy, yeah, it sounds like he is one of those type of people, but is he culpable of murder?
Well, he didn't murder anyone.
Oh,
that's
that's
the whole
true.
point. That's what these guys do. They don't get their hands dirty. They just order it and they throw money down.
Yeah.
And do I think he was capable? Abso-freaking-lutely.
That was tough. Almost came out, huh?
I'm really furious about this.
I could tell.
Well, and the other thing about it, like I was upset, and then when I read about the whole court thing that happened, and it's just heartbreaking because apparently his son Dolphy, so he was on the stand and everything, and because this was about the single lens camera or whatever, and not the 16 lens camera, they wouldn't even let him show that he had created this other camera.
Right.
They wouldn't even allow it in court.
Yeah.
Because if they would have, he would have been able to present the videos, like the one in the courtyard, him playing the accordion and the traffic across the bridge. That could have been evidence to say, hey, look.
Right.
Edison didn't have any videos of anything.
No.
That we know of,
well,
at least.
No, yeah.
But that would predate and show that he had been working on all this, but they wouldn't allow it in court.
Yeah.
And so then it got thrown out, and so there was nothing. And then he paid off, whoever he paid off. And then the company that was trying to sue him to take away the patent then joins forces with him afterwards. And it made me sick to my stomach, honestly.
Well, I'm sure for them, they had to figure out a way to stay in business, I'm sure. But I agree, it's disgusting.
But, and like, I think about his widow, Elizabeth, and his son, and it's like, can you imagine what they felt after that? I mean, not only did their husband and father get killed, but now that's getting stolen from them. So how are they supposed to stay alive and make a living, right? Because they weren't rich people. And then now the son's dead. Now the son gets killed. So this poor woman has lost her husband and her son all because of this greediness. Yeah. And it really just makes me angry.
Well, and the other thing that I, we didn't mention in some of these notes, but I do know this. He actually did file the patent in France and I think Great Britain, for the single camera lens. However, guess where the lawsuit was? In jolly old USA. So it didn't hold any water. Now, the part that kind of really sucks about that is Elizabeth had to wait. I think she had to wait a minimum of 7 years to initiate the patent for the single lens camera here in the US. But because Edison already came up with it, it was null and void.
Came up with it.
Right. It's already been patented. So now I don't know. And I guess maybe, and you guys, if you know more, by all means comment. But I don't know that she died destitute. She may have, I don't know.
Yeah, don't think there's a lot of information
Right. But
on her. I mean, she was an artist as well, so
yeah. But you got to think, did they know at that time what they were going to invent would do what it did? I mean, case in point,
No.
we're coming to you on a video, right? And there's no film used here, right? I mean, this is all digital, but this was all because of this very topic. The only reason why we have visuals and motion picture and all these things was from kind of like a space race back in those days for someone to come up with this single lens camera. Now, from my understanding, Thomas Edison nor Louis Le Prince weren't the only ones trying to come up with this. There were several, obviously, since there was litigation later. So this was kind of like one of those things where everybody was trying to be first to market with something like this. They were just at the precipice of making something really, really important. Did they know it would go into this? No, because, we've done a lot with motion picture and things like that up to this point. I don't know that even the visionaries that they were, maybe not Edison, but maybe the visionaries that they were, could they have known that this was going to be? Probably not. But had she been able to file that patent, obviously she'd have had tremendous wealth.
yeah. It's sad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of wrapping up some of the information. Louis Le Prince was a French artist and inventor of early motion picture camera. He was possibly the first person to shoot a moving picture sequence using a single lens camera and a strip of paper film. Okay. And that's kind of important too, because he was using a very sensitive piece of paper and I don't think he could reuse it or anything. So he was looking for something to make a better film. I say film because at that point that word didn't really exist. At any rate, he has been credited as the father of cinematography. And I think that's probably where he is going to be known the most as.
Now.
Right. Like he's never going to be, unfortunately, there's people who have watched these things and listened to things like this podcast know that there's some more to it. But the most he's ever going to have publicly is that he is the father of modern cinema. So at least there's that to his legacy.
In France, an appreciation society was created called the L'Association des Amis de la Prince, which I guess means Association of Le Prince's Friends.
Okay.
Which still exists in Lyon, and his short films are shown in the Armley Mills Industrial Museum located in Leeds.
That's awesome. So there's
some commemoration there for him.
Right. And, unfortunately, you don't get that in the U.S., really. I mean, again, we didn't know anything about this until you did your research. But, unfortunately, with us being the culture that we are and how much cinema we watch as a country, heck, as anything. I mean, everybody's streaming, watching this. And I mean, to know that the father of cinematography was really also potentially the father of the single lens camera. And a lot of people may think you're splitting hairs at that point, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that not having been given that proper moniker of being the father of the single lens camera, at least it somewhat waters it down in the U.S. because, I mean, Edison had a monopoly of this for so many years.
Yeah.
So
I just it makes me angry.
No, and it is one of those things where being angry is probably a good feeling because we sort of felt like, I don't want to say we've been lied to, but it just seems like
you always find that stuff out though, like with history, like growing up in elementary school, you're taught one thing and then you get to college and like completely like, well, forget everything you learned because this is the real truth. And it's like things just keep coming out. That's the real truth. And he's credited with so many things.
Right.
Thomas Edison. It's just like, now I just feel like, did he do anything?
Well, I mean,
like that quote, that he gave to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, I laughed because we're in Missouri. That's a very old paper.
Yeah.
It's a very old city, but because it was local, I was like, and people took it as him being humble, like, oh, well, I really, but he was just telling the truth about himself is the way I feel it. Like,
I didn't invent the damn thing.
I didn't do anything. Well, yeah, you're right. That was maybe the one time he was actually honest about it.
Right. I mean, it sucks too, because Edison is such a fixture of Americana and American history, that learning these things, it really does make you think that how many other stories out there exist that we were not given the full truth
there's
of.
so many.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. Yeah. The discovery of America, right there.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We could go down that rabbit hole for about 12 hours, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I don't know, guys. What do you think? I mean, it's a little bit of a shorter episode, and that's fine. Not everything's got to be, an hour and 10 minutes.
But, it's not paranormal per se. I searched to see if there was any type of, paranormal hauntings or anything in regards to the lip princess, especially Adolphe, because I thought maybe that might be one that. But I mean, there's not really anything said about anything, but it's more like a true crime.
Right.
And more like people just need to know this.
Yeah, for sure. And
I think more than anything.
And you think of the heart of the word paranormal, right? It just means different than normal. And this guy vanished, you know?
He did.
And not only did he vanish, but his luggage vanished. So that is really intriguing, because not only did the physical body of somebody just completely disappear, but more importantly, that case.
Yeah.
And
like, they were talking about suicide, or if something would have happened on the train. Okay. If you'd have committed suicide, they would have found his luggage probably.
Well, sure.
Right. If he would have gotten robbed, that doesn't necessarily mean he would have been killed. I mean, they went to extra lengths to just erase him from the planet. And that tells me there was something else there.
Yeah. And
that nobody saw him after he got on the train in Dijon. That was it.
Yeah.
Nobody else. So between there and I guess wherever the next station was, I don't know if the next station was Paris or if there was another city in between there. I don't know the distance. Something happened. Well, and I'm guessing that if maybe the train went over, like a bridge or something like that, they could have easily just.
Oh, sure.
Like
knocked him kicked him right out the window.
Taken the thing and just gone. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to do.
And the other thing that's interesting is this is France in the late 1800s.
Right.
People weren't very tall back then.
No.
This man was 6'4".
You'd think you'd notice someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone would be like, that's a tall dude. I mean, even to nowadays, you're walking down, someone's 6'4", unless you're in the NBA, which you'd probably be short at that point. But, a 6'4" man or 6'4" woman or anybody 6'4", you're going to see that. And it's going to be, oh, wow, you're a pretty tall person. So, and this is in France. So they would have seen him. They would have seen him getting off.
Somebody would have noticed him. Yeah. I would think.
My feeling is dude never even got on the train. I think what happened was his brother, I think if I remember right, when they interviewed the brother, he said that he saw him get on and that they even had a conversation through the window of the train with his brother.
So he was on the train.
But could the I don't want to say the Edison guys because we don't know for sure, but the mob that may or may not have been waiting for him. I mean,
dragged him off the train.
Right. Just dragged him off then.
It's possible.
Yeah. They never even took off because these people never saw this guy. Now, if you think about how trains are now, you've got the full rows, kind of like in an airplane for the, third class or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't like that. There were compartments. So could this guy jumped in a compartment and then nobody saw him? Sure. But
yeah, I
mean, 6'4", come on, you're going to see that. But, were they waiting for him? I think they probably tailed this guy and his brother the whole way. They probably knew where he was going. And if in fact Edison was behind all of this, he had the kind of resources to pay people off. Yeah. He had the kind of resources to say to conductors, hey, I'm going to escort this gentleman off of this train. Here is X amount of money for you to look the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, to that, I think they even investigated the brother for a while. They were blaming the brother like he did
Yeah.
something to him. I'm like, how awful. He just lost his wife.
Yeah.
And now, you know, his brother is gone, missing. And I'm just like, it's just terrible. And there is one thing that I did find, and it was completely falsified, because at first I was like, oh, look at this. And it was a few years ago. This was this false story. Somebody made it up that there was a graduate student that went to, I can't remember what library it was in New York. I think the New York Library. And they found an old leather-bound journal. And they said it was Edison's journal. And he had wrote something about, in the date was like a day after or so that he disappeared. And it said something to the effect of, oh, somebody said it was done. I'm glad he's gone, or you know, something like that. And now I can move forward with the patent or something like that, like trying to prove that he, and you know, of course it was a complete hoax. It was just all made up. But
I don't think somebody like with his intelligence and his resources.
Yeah, you're not going to write that down.
I'm not going to give somebody a smoking gun goes, I did it.
Right.
I don't know.
Or like, and it says something like, I don't approve of murder, but blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But it was a complete hoax. So if you are looking into this and you find that, and there were several like articles, like actual like newspaper articles I read about it. Obviously they didn't do their research well enough, because they just took it as a real thing.
Right.
It is false. It is not real.
Yeah.
It is not. There's no journal from Thomas Edison that this person discovered. He did not write that, so that it was completely fake.
And Thomas Edison, you know, he's got a lot of great quotes out there about failing and keeping going. And, you know, I guess for me, I don't want to completely bash the man. I mean, hey, there could have been something he created, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, it's really still pretty hard to wrap my head around one of the fathers of the turn of the century being, you know, potentially a murderous bastard. But, you know. Keep
going so I can steal your stuff.
Yeah, right. Money. Yeah, keep going.
Like, that's all I hear anymore is like, yeah, keep working hard so I can take your stuff from you and make money. Like, that's all I can think, because he did this. This is not even the people that we mentioned.
I know.
He did this repeatedly.
Yeah, he did.
Over and over and over and over.
He sure did.
So I cannot for 1 minute sit here and think that he actually did anything except steal stuff.
Well,
Sorry,
there you go.
That's my opinion. I don't like liars. I don't like thieves.
Yeah.
You know, and a man lost his life.
Yeah.
A son lost his life.
Yeah.
A woman lost her husband and her son.
Yeah.
All over money.
Yeah.
And it just makes me sick.
Yeah.
And that the foundation of our cinema,
I know,
in America is built off the blood of these people.
You sit on a throne of lies.
It just makes me sick. Makes me sick.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks. Again, we just sort of present you the information. Don't take our word for it. Look it up yourselves. You know, part of what we do is we bring you the information. We're kind of stay in the middle of the road. Although I think in this we're a little less in the middle.
I'm proud to be on the other side, if that's what it means. I'm good.
That's all good. I'm all right with it too. But anyway, look, hey, thanks a lot, guys, for stopping by again. You know, again, reach out to us at info@gxparanormal.com if you guys have any questions, or I mean, even if there's an episode or something you guys would like to see. I mean, we're definitely open to it. Mm-hmm. We don't just do interviews. There's a lot of, you know, some of our content. And yeah, we do paranormal, but as you've seen with this episode, we do focus on some true crime as well. We do like to tie in a little paranormal to it. Disappearance is pretty paranormal. So, but anyway, yeah, reach out to us. Of course, follow us on the Facebooks and all the other socials that are out there. And we'll get you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Check out our YouTube at Generation X Paranormal, Also, check out our Facebook, Generation X Paranormal Podcast. Love to have you. See you then.